Hello, my name is Hakon and welcome back to my channel where I am back, where the tea is back and where the game book is back today because I am playing the long-awaited episode 2 of playing Slaves of the Abyss, which is one I started a little while ago. And for those of you who follow my channel, you will of course know that the reason I haven't been playing many game books, certainly my excuse for the last several months, is that I have been working on my poetry. I've been revising, editing, extending, correcting, repunctuating more than once. I'm publishing 3 volumes of poetry spanning work going all the way back to 1994, as well as some poems that I started writing in 1994 and I finished them just now. And I've put them on display right behind me here, my 3 books, 1994, 3 Words, and Breaths of Time. So, of course, for those of you who are keen to support my channel but don't just want to give me money through, say, Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, who want something tangible in return for their support, this is now one of the best ways, I think, to support my channel is to buy my books of poetry, available on Amazon all over the world, and links will be in the description. So if you want to know more about the poetry books, there are other videos available for that. I'll put the link up here somewhere. And yeah, I'm quite happy with them. Not perfect, but I don't think that's something that art ever should be. I think art should be something that displays a strive towards perfection, a journey towards perfection. But if you attain that perfection in some kind of way, then suddenly it becomes dull again, which is quite a weird thing about art, which is also why I don't really fancy photorealism in painting, for instance, so much, or hyperrealism, because it's just in a way, it doesn't really give me anything new that I couldn't already see in the photo. It just is someone who has perfected a technique for replicating a photo. So there's nothing interesting about it. Unless, by the way, of course, photos can be interesting, but photos are interesting because they give us a new perspective of things. So it depends all on the actual picture, of course. But then again, the actual technique itself of photorealism or hyperrealism in painting or drawing, then of course, as you might as well just use a photo. I don't know. It's a bit strange. In any case, I'm digressing, and of course, I know you love my digressions, but I will keep them a little bit brief. Now, it has been a while since I started playing this book. Now, I got very far last time. I felt I got very close to the end. It felt reasonably linear, but it's hard to say for sure. This book has a mechanism of keeping time. There's a little table there for keeping time, which indicates to me that there are many paths potentially that will lead towards at least it should. There's absolutely no point having a system of timekeeping unless there are lots of paths that lead towards the end point, but not most of them probably are not viable, or certainly only some of them are viable. So it's a different way to structure a game book. Most game books, they have dead ends, so that there's only one path that actually leads to the end. If you have a kind of timekeeping, then you have a different mechanism in play that certainly usually would indicate that there is either multiple paths leading to the end, including some that are too long, or that you want something to happen at specific times, and where that happens is supposed to be a little bit random. So one of those two things. I don't know which it is yet, because last time I only got through 8 ticks on the timetable, and of course there are lots of boxes left. So we'll see how we get on with that today. Right, I'm just going to switch to my desk view like so. A nice thing with OBS. It's so much easier to record videos with OBS than it was before. And now you can see my lovely cuppa as well. So it's one of those expressions, by the way, if you don't live in Britain or you don't know someone who's British, you would find it very strange when somebody says, "I could murder a cuppa." Which means that I'd really love a cup of tea. But yeah, I could murder a cuppa. That's that's how some people say it. Right. It's very strange because that's the expression "I could murder," and then something that you would want to would like is of course derived from "I could murder for a cup of tea." So of course you don't say the full expression anymore. It's been truncated, as it were. Anyway, I'm digressing again, and I hope you don't mind. I like etymological digressions, especially. Right, so let's go through this book from the start now. I can't remember some of the details. I know there's timekeeping, and I know there is gold. I did actually decide in this one to completely ignore stats because, as you know, I've decided that I'm not having any fun with dice rolls at all these days. You can see my dice are here, but I'm not enjoying it. What I am enjoying is finding the path through, solving the puzzle, enjoying the narrative, all those aspects of a book that has more to do with being a book than with being a game, I suppose. But you can still have games without dice and without random elements. I think it's a common misunderstanding that you need dice or random elements to make something a game. Let's look at chess, for instance. One of the most famous games in the world. Is there any random element in it? No, none whatsoever. Still a game. So, right, just have a little look at the introduction here. So there is the usual skill, stamina, and luck. If I ever decide I want to roll dice, I will just pretend to have, say, 12 skill or whatever. Just for fun. Combat is standard. Escaping is pretty standard, I think. Fighting more than one opponent, also standard, in that it says in the paragraph that you encounter multiple opponents in. Instant death. And this is one I really like, and that I think is missing from most, well, almost all fighting fantasy books up until this one. This is the first fighting fantasy book that introduces a critical hit that kills your opponent. So when you roll a double 6 in battle, you have scored a killing blow on your opponent. The battle ends straight away and you are the victor. And you can only do it if you're using your sword. So that seems fair. This is something I've been missing, actually, from the game. An insta-death. And also I would have liked to fumble as well. So if somebody rolls Snake Eyes, 2 1s. I would have liked there to be a system where then your opponent actually does more injury to you, so that instead of two stamina points deducted, you actually deduct 3 stamina points. I would have liked to see that. Anyway, luck, testing luck, standard. Using luck in battles is standard. Restoring skill, stamina, and luck is standards. Now we have provisions in this game. I'm not going to ignore those, of course. I have found that in most games, certainly when I sort of play by the rules, the provisions aren't usually that crucial, especially once you find the right path, which usually is also one where there's less peril, fewer difficult monsters to overcome. So eating a meal restores up to 4 stamina points. I suppose it says when you can use it, I think. Equipment, you get leather armor, sword, 5 gold pieces left from your previous adventure, and then there is the very important special rule in this particular game, of course, keeping track of time. And of course this is my character sheet now, pretty much. It's just the timetable, which also is printed here on the very nice inside cover. And also whoever owned this book before, it's got a nice little monogram there, which isn't very intrusive actually. In any case, the interesting thing about this is what happens when you get to the boxes that are numbered 57 and 32. Is it 9 or 8? It's very difficult to see that one. 326 maybe. 326, yeah. Last time I needed to put on my reading glasses for that, but I can see it now. Just so when you get to those boxes, you have to go to those paragraphs and read them and do whatever happens there, and then you go back to where you were at the time. Okay, that is it really. So it says you will find it easy to be diverted from the true path throughout this adventure. On your first attempt, you will probably run out of time, or even meet with an untimely end. Nice turn of phrase there. To succeed, you will have to think hard about each choice you make. Yeah, well, that's how it should be in a game book. Let's see if it delivers on that. Now, I'm going to do the background again because I can't remember it. You might be able to, because it is possible that you may have watched episode 1 just before this one. If you're watching this on catch-up TV, as it were, catch-up YouTube. For those of you watching it for the first time, just as I'm publishing this, of course, you might need a refresher as well. So feel free to skip ahead a little bit if you feel you don't need the background. So, these are troubled times in Calamer. No sooner had its ruler, Lady Carolina, got over the death of her husband than she was flung into a war between the rival trading state with the rival trading state, Alchemist. After a sea battle in which many lives were lost, it seemed that Calamer had prevailed, yet there was more to come. Rumours spread of armies massing on the northern borders. Beihan, never a friendly neighbour, was said to be preparing for an invasion. Acting decisively, Lady Carolina ordered all her armies to the northern borders. The mountain passes on the borders could be defended with ease. If the armies of Beihan were allowed to reach the wide plains of Calamer, however, they would wreak untold damage. You arrive in Calamer just as the last troop of soldiers are departing. You find yourself in a city strangely deserted. Life goes on, but without the many brightly costumed warriors who used to parade so proudly down Calamer's winding streets. Parade proudly, I like that turn of phrase as well. I'm in a sort of poetic mindset these days, so I like my alliterations and things. So parading proudly it has a nice ring to it. That didn't last very long, did it? Yeah, I need something better to prop these books up. I was trying to support these. Yeah, they're really trying to escape these books up here. So anyway, you've seen them now. I don't need to keep them up here, I suppose. So I'll just move them away so you can see my lovely set of Roger Zelazny stories instead. At some point I'll need to get some kind of just some little cradles that I can use. 3 words is keeping itself steady there, so I'll keep that there. Right. I need to get some cradles so I can put them in my bookshelf to have in the background of my videos. Anyway, back to the other background. Where are we? With the soldiers gone, life goes on without blah, 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 blah. Parading proudly. Yeah, we're talking about parading proudly, and I was talking about poems, and then the poems fell down. Calamer's winding streets. With the soldiers gone, the criminals thrive. You bar the door of your room at night and sleep with your sword beside your bed. Now, that's probably what an adventurer normally would do anyway. It's a comfort blanket. It's the surrogate of... it's a sort of mother surrogate from when you were a child. It's your stuffed toy. It's your dolly. Your sword. You sleep with your sword, of course. A few weeks pass, then one morning a wild-eyed messenger rides into the city, yelling incoherent warnings of an invasion from the east. Less than an hour after he disappears into the palace, a servant brings you a note on stationery bearing the seal of the House of Rangor. It is a summons to appear before Lady Carolina herself. It seems your fame as an adventurer has reached her, and in these dark days the lady has need of fearless warriors. And probably that means that your fame of the fact that you're able to read as well must have reached her, because otherwise she would have just sent a messenger with a verbal message. Due to the setting of these kinds of stories, one would presume that most people wouldn't know how to read and write. Just a thought. When you arrive at the palace, you find yourself in the company of 10 other adventurers. Several are known to you by sight, and one, Sophia of Blacksand by name, as you have shared dangers with her on more than one occasion. Before you have a chance to exchange names and greetings with the others, you are led inside by a servant. You are ushered into an audience chamber to face 5 nobles behind a huge black wooden table. In the center sits Lady Carolina, resplendent in ceremonial jewellery, the sword of office on the table before her. To her left is her cousin, Maderios, a fat fellow with a nervous twitch in his nose. So he's trying to look like a villain, then, I suppose. Beyond him sits Dunyazad of Ikhtian, a small woman who is reputed to be the wealthiest person in Calamer province. To Carolina's right are Sage the Silent, an imposing woman of ancient lineage, and Azaya al-Budur, the stern-faced judge. Truly, you face the 5 most important people in Calamer. You bow, and Carolina swiftly explains the situation. With the army many leagues to the north, Calamer lies unguarded. Now a messenger has arrived from the easternmost regions, telling of villages found deserted. It seems that an army is advancing on the city from the east. It must be barbarian raiders from Kulak Isle. A rider must be dispatched at once to fetch back half of Calamer's army. Meanwhile, the city must be defended in some way. Carolina explains that her loyal champion, Ramirez the Invincible, most feared warrior in all the southern lands, is away on a quest for a fabled relic. She praises you all for your past gallantry and asks that you help her and gain the gratitude of the whole province by undertaking the defense of the city. You may be few in number, but surely the glory will be all the greater. I will fight him on the beaches, etc. Yes. We'll fight him in the fields. We'll never surrender. Okay. Yeah, I just saw the film a few weeks ago. I saw The Darkest Hour, the one about a few days of the life of Churchill just as he was being made Prime Minister. It's quite a fascinating little miniature biopic, I suppose, because it's such a tiny portion of such a really long life as well. But it gives you quite a bit of glimpse into his character, into his wife's character, and the people around him, and their thoughts about him as well at the time. So that's quite interesting. And of course, Churchill played to absolute perfection, as you would expect by Gary Oldman, who is always absolutely off the scale amazing in his character roles. Anyway, I'm digressing again. Why not? Right, turn to paragraph 1. So last time I do, well, of course, presumably now the reason why my map is quite linear is that even in the beginning here, there's a sort of a branching thing where it depends a bit which of these beginning paths you take, because now there are different missions that need fulfilling. So actually, I'll just read paragraph 1 and you'll see what I mean in a moment if you don't remember from last time. So, how can you refuse such an appeal? The other 10 are quick to volunteer for the task, and your voice joins theirs in pledging allegiance to Lady Carolina. This is your chance to become more than a wandering adventurer. You'll be a true hero of legend. And of course, in order to become a true hero of legend, you need the hero's drink, the only drink that can save the world, which is Earl Grey tea. There we are. Yes, now we're ready to save the world again. Actually, in this one, you're not saving the world. Actually, that's quite refreshing as well, because in so many of the previous fighting fantasy books now, sorry about new digression coming on, a lot of them you are actually trying to save the world. And this one, it's not so clear. It's at the moment you're just saving the province. So the scale and scope is a little bit more narrow, and I think that makes for a better narrative, generally speaking, because it just gets a bit sort of, it's like feature creep in engineering, isn't it? It's like what do you call it? Peril creep, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, you listen as the 5 nobles begin to lay plans. One of you must ride to the northern passes and summon the army. Another must ride east to scout out the invaders. The rest must remain in Calamer and use all their wits and ingenuity to prepare a defense. What you intend to do. Now, last time I chose to scout to the east. Now, in order to give myself a good chance of actually completing this game, even though the replayability is interesting, I'm going to make the same initial choice that I did last time. I presume that each of these 3 choices should if it doesn't, if each of these cheese choices can't lead to victory, then it's a bit daft. I think it makes sense. It makes sense in my head, and it should really do to anyone designing a game book, that if you are giving people choices like this, it's like 3 different adventures. There might be a common bit at the end, but certainly the beginning bit should all be possible paths to victory. So I'm going to volunteer to scout to the east and go to paragraph 104. You are sitting at a table with the 5 nobles, eating a fine meal to fortify you as they give you your final briefing. They are being waited on by their own servants, while Carolina has assigned one of her pages to take care of you. Madeiros warns you against taking any incautious action yourself. It is most important that you return to tell us of the nature of this menace, so that we may know how best to defend against it, he explains. While Dunazad is in the middle of advising you to rest at the temple of Furga, you feel a light touch on your leg. Now, there was something last time about resting at that temple, and it sounded like that was part of a ploy to kill me or frame me. So it's almost like I was being framed to be set up to be proven to be a thief of artifacts from the temple. So Dunyarzad, at the moment, I am not trusting him. He might be in on that, quite possibly. While Dunyarzad is in the middle of advising you to rest at the temple of Furga, you feel a light touch on your leg. You look around and see the page who was waiting upon you walking away. Looking down into your lap, you see a folded fragment of paper. The page must have dropped this as he refilled your goblet. If you pick it up and read it straight away, turn to 264. If you slip it into your pocket to read later, turn to 23. Now, last time I slipped it into my pocket, and that didn't seem to work so well either. So this time I'm going to try something different, just for the freshness of it, and I'm going to read it straight away and see what it says. You unfold the scrap of paper. On it is written, "Beware. You are watched by 1,000 eyes." You ponder what this strange message can mean, but are brought out of your reverie when you realize that you are being addressed by Dunyazad of Ikhtian. She seems insulted that you have failed to hear her question. Hang on, wasn't that what happened last time as well? Oh. So, I don't know, it seems like that is the paragraph I read last time, which means that my map is actually wrong. So last time I actually did... I did actually... Even if I was intending to make the other choice, I actually did do this one. So actually it's 23 I haven't looked at before. So I'm going to go to 23 now. And it says, pocketing the scrap, you listen attentively as Dunyazad suggests that you stick to the roads. Though they will carry you a roundabout way, they will be far quicker than chancing a ride across country. Still not trusting him, though. When you have left the table and are alone, you examine the scrap of paper. It reads, "Beware, you are watched by 1,000 eyes." Okay. So it doesn't seem to make much of a difference which of those two you choose, except that if you choose to look at it later, you get the extra information, which may or may not be good. It might be a part of the deception to follow the roads. And my phone is not on silent. Let's put my phone on silent. I was meaning to put it on silent as well. I can see it if it rings, so I don't need it for the sound to be on. Although, unless you really like my ringtone, of course, which I composed myself, if I have to say so myself. Not going to talk about my ringtone today, but it's a Commodore 64 SID tune that I made a while back. Anyway, turn to 140. Okay. You are led straight down. Am I in shot here now? I just have to make sure I don't move too far up here. Okay. You are led straight down to the stables to choose your horse. While you are preparing to leave, tall Sage approaches. Her voice is low, almost inaudible, and you understand how she came to be called the Silent. She tells you that she has a valuable magical item which will aid you on your journey. I have a very valuable magic item that will aid you on your journey. And bring you the luck of the gods. And bring you the luck of the gods. It is a pomander of rare herbs. If worn around your neck, it will also remove your need for sleep. It is passed up to you by Sage's servant, a poor deformed creature who shuffles slowly and wears a hood, no doubt to hide his piteously ugly face. What's with all this? Is this Igor, probably from like Frankenstein, presumably? Yes, master. Bundling together your possessions, you hurry into the bustling courtyard. With no time for ceremony, you mount your steed and pick your way through the crowd to the gate. A swift ride... What crowd? I thought the town was basically deserted now. Yeah, anyway. A swift ride along the way of Flint brings you to Calamer's Grand Gate. Turn to 329. There is no map here, is there? It would have been nice with a map. Anyway. 329, yeah. So 329. This is where I get my first time tick, I believe. You ride until nightfall. Although you are eager to press on, your horse is tired, and it would be too dangerous to continue in the darkness. You dismount and prepare for a night to be spent in the open. Tick off a time box. So what I did last time, I just did numbers 1 in my time boxes. I'm going to do number 2. Second playthrough. That's the logic of it. So I can use the same table over and over. If you have Sage's Pomander, turn to 63. Now this is interesting because this means that you would have been able to get here without the Pomander. And it seems like if you choose the scouting operation now, you are definitely going to be here regardless of other choices. So maybe some of the other paths also lead on to this. Yeah, maybe. I can't remember the details now of what's happening later. If there is a possibility that these things actually are more overlapping than I thought, or if they're quite separate paths. Anyway, I do have Sage's Pomander, and I'm going to turn to 63. You tether your horse and see to her feed, lighting a small fire for protection. You settle yourself down for the night. Hours pass as you gaze up at the constellations above you. You remember Sage's explaining her Pomander's power to arrest sleep. You are grateful for its properties when you observe several stealthy forms approaching. You lie still, feigning sleep, your hand inches from your sword hilt. If you wait until they are nearly upon you before attacking, turn to 214. If you leap up before they advance further, turn to 348. Now last time I was waiting for them, and today I'm going to leap up before they advance further. In an instant, you are on your feet, brandishing your sword. You leap at the fire and launch a mighty kick at it. Fiery embers cascade onto the stunned figures of 3 black elves, and they yelp in pain. You prepare to do battle with them, but it seems they have had enough. They lope off into the darkness. Turn to 163. So I'll skip all that bit there. So that is straight up to 163. So these are the Black Elves. They are the ones who were supposed to plant a golden fist, I think. So it's which is a kind of relic from the temple that Dunyaza had suggested that I should stay in on my journey. So if you allow them to get close to you, they will secrete it in your pack. So there we go. The rest of the night passes uneventfully, and with the morning you resume your journey. The leagues stretch on, and you see a range of mountains in the distance ahead of you. How long is the league again? I keep forgetting. It's been so long since I have heard of leagues. I just want to check now. How long is a league? 1 or 2. Nope, not that one. League 2. So that it is roughly 3 miles. Okay. So 3 miles, that means it is about 5, yeah, roughly 5 kilometers for the metric of you, I suppose. Yeah, just rounded off quite a bit. The leagues stretch on and you see a range of mountains in the distance ahead of you. You pass through several villages and are surprised at the surly reactions of the villagers. As you pass them, you hear them muttering under their breath. And when you stop to refill your water bottle, they do their best to ignore you. The sun is low in the sky when you enter the small town of Hasra, in which lies the temple of Furga. You could travel a few more hours if you wished, but you would have to spend another night in the open. Tick off a time box. So we have another time box ticked. If you ride on, turn to 26. This is where I was supposed to make a note as well. Every time there is a time box, I'm just going to put a little mark there. If you ride on, turn to 26. If you seek hospitality at the Temple of Furga, turn to 4. Now I'm a bit curious now what happens if... What happens if you don't, if in the previous encounter you actually didn't get the holy relic hidden in your pack? What happens differently at this place? So even though I don't think I need to stop here, I'm going to check it out now and see what happens differently. So I'm going to go to, it might give me an advantage of some sort. Furga is the god of pride. Interesting. So I suppose no wonder the priests are that proud and haughty. Anyway, Furga is the god of pride, and his priests here in Hasra certainly have their fair share. There you go. Beat me to it almost. The old man who admits you to the temple looks you up and down coldly, saying not a word. You are led in to see the high priest, a wrinkled, venerable old fellow who eyes you with distaste. So, the lone dog dares to darken our portals once more with its presence. He snarls in a voice surprisingly firm for one of his age. Perhaps you would care to empty your backpack for us. If you agree to empty your backpack, turn to 15. If you refuse, turn to 390. I'm going to agree, of course. There's nothing in my backpack to be ashamed of. Unless he finds my magazines. My collared magazines. You tip all your possessions out onto the floor before the high priest, wondering what the old fool is trying to prove. Priests of Furga aren't usually quite so arrogant. If you have the golden fist, turn to 73. If you don't have the fist, turn to 379. I don't have the fist. Your possessions are thoroughly gone through, but the priests are not satisfied. What have you done with it? Demands the high priest. You protest your innocence and explain that you are on an important mission. When you mention that it was Dunyazad of Ikhtian who told you to stay at the temple, the high priest sits up. We will test the truth of your story, he says. You are led away to a cell by 2 of the priests, turn to 353, so that wasn't very successful. At the moment it looks like I should just avoid the temple altogether. We'll see. You spend an unpleasant hour pacing up and down the cell, wondering what can have gone wrong. Dunyazad told you to stay at this temple. Why should the priests be so hostile? Eventually you are released. The high priest explains that he has spoken with Dunyazad, and you are now to go free to continue your mission. He seems loath to release you. Nevertheless, you soon find yourself back in the streets of Hasra with your possessions returned. Turn to 136. So it doesn't seem to benefit me at all at the moment to have gone through here. It's just a waste of time, possibly. Your journey continues once more as you attempt to make up some of the time you have lost. If you decide to cut across country, turn to 287. If you stick to the roads, turn to 256. Now, the Dunyazad told me to go to the temple. He told me to stick to the roads. Do I still trust him or not? I'm not sure. Now, the high priest, here, he didn't sound like he actually liked Dunyarzad, and he spoke to Dunyarzad, and then I was free to go. So if it was Dunyarzad's intent to prevent me from making this journey, he would have come up with an excuse to keep me longer. Most likely. So that sounds like Dunyarzad might actually be on my side, after all. And whoever else is in charge of planting that golden fist in my pack, with the help of these 3 black elves, and also who is in cahoots, obviously, with the priests of Furga, is someone else, logically. So I'm going to go the roads. I'm going to follow his suggestion, because if you cut across the wilderness here, you actually seem to lose quite a lot of time. So I'm going to go stick to the roads. 256. Follow the advice of Dunyarzad. The road is deeply rutted, as if it is often used, but you meet no other travellers. On the slopes around you, the vegetation grows thicker, and soon you are riding through woodland. Then, ahead of you on the road, you see a charging ox. It thunders past, bellowing madly. A little further on, you see the cart that it had been shackled to, ditched by the roadside. Nearby lies the still body of another ox. You sense movement behind it and hear revolting sucking noises. You canter up cautiously. Suddenly your horse whinnies, and a black swathed figure looks up. You cannot penetrate the darkness beneath its hood, but you feel a malevolent gaze trained upon you. With an inhuman shriek, the figure races off into the undergrowth with a loping gait. If you give chase, turn to 296. If you examine the oxen cart, turn to 13. So, yeah, okay, that's a bit of an interesting one. 256. So maybe I should move that onto the next page, or I'll just go sideways for now. So it's 296 or 13. So 13 exam or 296. Follow. Okay. I don't feel like following this shady creature character. I'm going to examine the oxen cart and go to 13. The ox lying before you is horribly mutilated. A grey slime seems to have eaten into its flesh. Involuntarily, you gag and turn your eyes away from. I suppose I should just keep these in short as well. Just a bit of advertising. This video is sponsored by me. Okay. You forge ahead further into the heart of the forests. No, hang on. The ox lying before you is horribly mutilated. A grey slime seems to have eaten into its flesh. Involuntarily you gag and turn your eyes away from the foul sight. As you do so, you notice something lying in the grass nearby. Something pink, resembling an uneven shallow bowl. Curious, you pick it up and discover that it is a mask. When you turn it over, you stare at it in disbelief. Your own face, modelled in soft wax, stares back at you. Huh. So, the antagonism of the people at the temple and that little village before, is that because somebody has been masquerading as me, perhaps? I mean, yeah, maybe. You crumble the imposter's mask in your hand and fling it angrily away. Turn to 139. That's an interesting little thing. Okay, so 139. Shaken by your experience, you return to your horse. Soon you are riding once more through the woodland. Tick off a time box. So we got one time tick. Yeah, and now I'll have to move this away a little bit. So we are now on box number 3. Okay. Where am I now? Shaken box. Yes. The road begins to slope downwards, and you wend your way along its many curves until you are following the banks of a fast-flowing stream. The sun is lowering in the sky behind you, and the air is alive with the noises of insects. Ahead of you is a crude stockade. You ride in and are quickly surrounded by a dozen curious villagers. They seem much friendlier than most others you have encountered so far, and you begin to hope that you will be treated hospitably here. Sure enough, you are invited inside for a meal and a drink. Restore up to 4 stamina points. Soon you are relaxing in the pleasant company of these simple folk. After a while you hear a commotion from outside your hut, and several villagers slip out. If you follow them outside, turn to 66. If you stay with your hosts in the hut, turn to 385. Now, is this something that was in my previous playthrough at all? No, it was not. But I'm going to move now onto the next page of my map, and I'll put my point over there where there's room on my map, even though it's crossing now the line there. So there's +4 stamina if needed, and then we have a bit conspicuous how nicely they're treating me. It's almost like they're treating me nicely to trick me in some fashion. So that's out. Stay. I'm going to follow the villagers that slipped outside, see what's going on. Outside in the twilight, you see the villagers gathered around someone who is talking in a scratchy, high-pitched voice. This must be a wise woman, or perhaps a witch, for the villagers are listening respectfully to her witterings. Then she whirls and points a scabby finger at you. "It is that one," she screeches. "The prophecy of the winged messenger is fulfilled. Our protector has come to save us from the creeping horde. Tell us that you will stay with us and deliver us from evil." That sounds too sinister, I think. If you agree to the old woman's demands, turn to 208. If you tell her she is mistaken, turn to 160. Okay. So 208. Agree. 160. No. So what do? This is not my job. I'm not here to help this village. I'm here to help everyone by going to get a message to the army. So, I have to tell her she's mistaken then, really. Can't see any other way for it. The old crone lets out a grating screech and drops to her knees. "We are lost! We shall all die! Abandoned by our savior!" Yeah. As you turn to leave, the villagers close in around you, pleading desperately. When you brush them aside, their pleas turn to threats. Several are carrying rusty farm tools and begin to menace you with them. If you wish to attack the villagers, turn to 191. If you surrender to their wishes, turn to 208. What a bunch of country bumpkins. Okay. I can't attack them. It just feels morally wrong to attack them. I'm going to have to agree to this thing. I have to acquiesce, as the word is, which is quite a cool word. I don't use it very often, but I have to acquiesce and agree. A ragged cheer goes up from the villagers as you give your assent. You are led back to the hut, and more food is brought. The old woman advises you to prepare for the test, which awaits. Oh, there's a test. Of course, there's a test, which awaits you. But she seems unable to explain its nature. The more she speaks to you, the madder she seems, and you begin to doubt her prophecy. But who are you to complain? You settle back to rest, staring up through the smoke hole at the bright moon. Turn to 319. So this is also another way to make me lose time, I think. 319. 319. But I can't attack them and kill them, can I? That wouldn't feel right. Right, around you the muted noises of the village begin to subside and the whirs and chirrups of the river insects take over. As time wears on, you notice that a faint buzzing is growing louder. Soon, the nearby insect sounds are drowned out by this unnatural rasping. You hear the screams of frightened villagers, and the moon is blotted out by the source of the terrible buzzing, directly above your hut. You run to the door, but it will not budge. You turn back to the hut in time to see a serpentine shape sliding down through the smoke hole. Turn to 86. 86. I think I'm going to need a sip of tea for this one. You prepare to battle this terrifying foe. Then you notice a pair of fancy boots poking down through the smoke hole. They are followed by a gaudily dressed figure who spirals effortlessly down a coiling rope. His billowing, brightly coloured clothing is completely out of place in this grubby hut. The figure bows to you expansively and hails you. "Greetings, traveller. I am called the Riddling River, and as luck would have it, I'm here to rescue you. I've been keeping an eye on you, old boy, and since you've made a complete pig's ear of things so far, I've decided to save your bacon." Yeah, maybe it talks like that. "If you waste your time on every peasant who begs you to wipe his nose, then Calamir has no chance." He twitches and giggles to himself. Pointing to the snake-like rope, he says, "This is the end of the line, so hurry up and get hold of it." He spirals effortlessly up the rope just as you hear the bar scrape back from the door behind you. If you grab the rope, turn to 96. If not, turn to 236. The Riddling Reaver, yeah, I remember him from the his eponymous advanced fighting fantasy adventure title, The Riddling Reaver, which I actually did start playing that as a using advanced Dungeons and Dragons role-playing rules. Actually, at some point, didn't really pan out. I think we only ended up doing one session. So yeah, the reason being, I think that I was a terrible game master. Let's face it, I wasn't a good dungeon master at all. I think I would have been better now, but I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I think I was better as a player than as a game master. Some people are better at game mastering than others. Right. So the Riddling Reaver, I believe that, and at some point there must be a riddle in the works. I presume then also possibly that the Riddling Reaver, the book, is written by the same person who wrote this book. Just guessing wildly now. And this is written by the way, this is by Paul Mason and Steve Williams. Paul Mason did Riddling Reaver, maybe? I'm not sure. I can't remember, certainly. So it's either grab the rope or not. 236. How can I not grab the rope? This is just too fascinating a little incident for me not to grab the rope, so I'm definitely grabbing the rope. No sooner have you grasped the end of the rope than you are jerked violently off your feet. You are swept upwards and out through the smoke hole. Below you, the torches of the angry villagers dwindle, and their wails can just be heard through the din. The angry buzzing comes from above, but all you can see is a huge black shadow. You are carried through the air for some way before being set down with a bump on solid ground. The Reaver spins down the rope and alights near you, and this time he is cradling a peculiarly shaped bottle in his arms. He holds it out to you, and you see that it is shaped like a particularly ugly fish. You'll be needing this, says the Reaver, passing you the bottle. In it is a sense of humour which I stole several years ago in my impetuous youth. You'll be meeting its former owner soon, so you'd better give it back to him. There's nothing so soft as a villain with a sense of humour. He winks knowingly at you, and without another word shoots up the rope. The buzzing rises in pitch, and the black shadow drifts off. You are alone, lost, without your horse. Warily, you settle down to wait out the rest of the night. Turn to 331. So you're getting this bottle. This sounds to me, this really, really, really sounds at the moment like the correct path. For some reason, there's Bottle with a sense of humor. I mean, how cool is that as an item in a fantasy book or any fantasy setting? So, bottle, humor. 331. Oops, I put that in the wrong place. So this, yeah, that's bottle humor. Okay, 331. The map is migrating up the frame there. Okay. In the cold light of morning, you discover that you have spent the night by the side of the road. What's more, your horse is quietly grazing a short distance away. As you remount and prepare to continue, you notice a small roll of parchment tied to the pommel of your saddle. It reads, "Before you I stand, fair and square, yet once you spot me I won't be there. Vanquished by a word, yet kings I beat, and rounded off with a rhyme so sweet." Except that's terrible poetry, but yeah, because the rhythm is off. Before you I stand fair and square, yet once you spot me I won't be there. So there's something that's square and beautiful, but if you see it, it's not there anymore. Vanquished by a word, yet kings I beat. Okay, so it's easy to remove, defeat, but it can still stand in the way of kings. Rounded off with a rhyme so sweet. Who am I? Yeah. I can't see it right away. It's probably really obvious once you get it. What is fair? What is square? And fair. A window, a door, a gate. But does a gate disappear if you see it, or a door? It disappears if you open it. It can be in the way of someone. A window, you can see through it when you see it, I suppose. Rounded off with a rhyme, so sweet. Add 2 luck points, which always is an indication that you've done something right, I think. Plus 2 luck and a riddle. I'll just put that there. Then turn to 7. It might just be a clue, though. I mean, it might be that it's not a riddle in so much in the sense that it's a clue for some things, for a choice I have to make later. So I'll just put clue there. You're beginning to feel that you are going to spend the rest of your life in the saddle. Well, that's a bit defeatist so soon, isn't it, after just a few days? The weather is strangely humid for the time of year, and the occasional gusts of wind from the east bring little comfort. And of course, that indicates to me that you can reach paragraph 7 from somewhere else. Because that's not a natural... yes. Because that's not a natural way to follow on from just having been carried off by the riddling reaver and not having been on the horse for a little while. So 7 is actually down here. So all this riddling reaver stuff is brings you back to paragraph 7, which is interesting. So that means that if you take the roads as opposed to cutting through, not only do you actually spend less time, or do you spend the same time? Have I missed the time call now? I don't think I have. So you spend less time and you get through all this thing with the villagers and you meet the riddling reaver. So it sounds to me like that is the correct place, which means, again, Dunyarzad's little hint in the beginning that I should hold to the roads seems to have been a good one. So, yeah. And the weather is strangely humid for the time of year, and the occasional gusts of wind from the east bring little comfort. They are tainted by a fetid, sickly sweet stench. The road passes through a jumble of massive boulders, and a jagged scarp rises on your left. Ahead of you, another settlement huddles beneath a huge overhang of rock. Strangely, no smoke rises from it. As you approach, you notice several objects littering the road: shoes, bowls, and tools. You dismount and enter the village cautiously, finding a desolate street empty of people and littered with debris. From one of the buildings to your right, you can hear a faint knocking sound. Will you follow the knocking or search the buildings to your left? Before I follow the knocking sound, did I find anything interesting? I found a clue at some point. And there was a potion as well, and a blowpipe. I might be able to get to those regardless of whether I start by following the knocking or searching, of course. Oh, no, maybe not, because 128 search is the same as this paragraph now. So that means that if I follow the knocking, I get a little bit extra stuff. Doesn't look like that gives me any benefits. It looks like it's skippable. I'm going to just do a search now and go to 128. You step into one of the buildings nearby and try to find some clue to explain the mystery of the abandoned village. You quickly realize that you have entered the house of a wizard or herbalist. Fragrant drying herbs, arcane books and scrolls and vials of colored liquids litter a desk in the corner to your right. To your left sits a rune-carved table on which lies a half-eaten knuckle of cured ham. Across the far wall you see a row of puppets dangling on their strings from a high shelf above a cupboard. If you go to look at them, turn to 244. If you examine the wizard's paraphernalia, turn to 333. Last time I was looking at, well, both actually. And it looks like if I start with the puppets, I will get to the paraphernalia afterwards. So I might as well do it in that order now as well. It might not work in the opposite order. Not always the case. As you approach the row of puppets, your left foot squelches in something and skids. You have trodden in a sticky green footprint. One of a line which leads from the cupboard to the table and back again. The cupboard before you is crudely daubed with a rune, the sign of a single arrow. If you open the cupboard with your sword ready to strike, turn to 76. If you open it normally, turn to 37. Last time I opened it with my sword and something happened. Just reminding myself. Maybe I should try opening it the other way just to see if that's better or worse. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? So I'm going to open it the normal way, not with my sword, because it didn't seem like what happened when you open it with the sword was particularly useful or good. There was some poison and stuff. 37. You step back in revulsion at the sight of a slimy green form crouched within the cupboard. It holds a slender tube to its mouth, which it points at your face. Looking closer, you see frightened eyes fixed on you. This is no creature of evil, but a young girl coated from head to foot in a sticky, foul-smelling mire. You smile at her encouragingly, and she lowers her makeshift blowpipe as she realizes you mean her no harm. Gently you hold out your hand and take the blowpipe from her, pocketing it to keep it out of harm's way. So now you also got a blowpipe. So I'll just put that on my map here. So we got that from blowpipe. So this is the correct choice there, clearly, and this is definitely then the incorrect choice in that particular location. Who are you? You ask her. Turn to 315. She tells you her name is Mima, and that she is the apprentice of the enchanter Anthemesis. She knows little more than you of the reason why the village is deserted. She has stayed hidden in the cupboard for the last couple of days since her master left. Before going, he told her to remain hidden, and he coated her in the green paste, which he said would protect her. She tells you that, the evening before his departure, Anthemesis had been very worried. I suppose that's almost a Greek name, so it should be Anthemesis, I suppose, if it's properly Greek. But Anthemesis, yeah, why not? Had been very worried by a divination he had performed. he had told her that he had to undertake a dangerous journey to seek guidance from Alethea, the sage who dwells in the shifting forest in the mountains to the north. Then he had insisted that she should stay hidden. Sure enough, she had remained cowering in the cupboard while the terrible din came down upon the settlement. Terrified, she listened to the hideous shrieks of the townsfolk. Finally, silence descended on the village. Then you came. If you have not already searched the wizard's desk, you may do so now. If you have already searched the desk, or if you don't wish to, you may leave the house with Mima. So you can do that in both orders, presumably then. So that allows me to go to... Hang on, did I to 315? Let's see, 315 and then 333. So Alethea... Okay, 333. Rummaging among the vials and pieces of scrap paper on the desk, you come across a parchment stained green by a sticky syrup which has spilled from a cracked bottle. You hold up the soggy sheet, straining to read the scroll which covers it. You can't make out all the words, just occasional snippets. And do not leave the house until you are certain the danger is past. Under no circumstances allow ... safe, then you should make your way to your parents' village by ... Find yourself in the shifting forest, you must follow the brush bearer's gloves or be lost forever, which is a clue, I suppose. The brush bearer's gloves. Okay. If you haven't already done so, you may go to examine the puppets and... So that's the brush. Let's put that there. Brush bearer's gloves, whatever that means. If you haven't already done so, you may go to the examine the puppets, etc. Or you may continue rummaging on the desk. Go to 158. I'll go to 158. You glance through the books and scrolls, but the rambling text means nothing to you. Excuse me. The vials look more promising, though many are cracked and their contents spilt. A few remain intact. Of these you salvage the 3 which seem the least noxious, each containing an unexciting cloudy brown liquid. Each is labelled in the same crabbed handwriting. You may risk drinking one or more of the liquids now, or you may take any or all of them with you. If you decide to take them with you, note down the name of each potion you take on your adventure sheet, together with the paragraph number which you should go to if you decide to drink it. You may drink one of these potions at any time that you would normally be able to drink a potion, that is, as long as you are not in battle. Remember, note down the number of the paragraph you are at before turning to the relevant paragraph for the potion you are about to drink. You should also make a note of the fact when you have drunk that potion. Each vial contains only one mouthful, so once you have drunk a potion, it has all gone. So there's the potion Gulsh, there's the potion Aral, and there's the potion Zazaz. I've made a note of those here. Okay, once you have finished checking the potions, turn to 270. If you have a blowpipe, turn to 2. Otherwise, if you have not yet examined the puppets and cupboard closely, you may do so. Alternatively, you may leave the building and make your way out of the settlement. Turn to 22. So this is where I can... I have a blowpipe and I can turn to 2. Holding Mima's sticky hand, you may make your way back to your horse. You will have to deliver her safely back to her parents. And she tells you that she knows the way to their village. It is back the way you have already come. But to leave her unprotected would not... Is that the village where everyone thought I was going to protect them from the creeping horde? We'll see. It is back the way you have already come, but to leave her unprotected would not be the action of a hero. Meanwhile, she is still covered in the green slime. If you decide to wash it off her, turn to 170, otherwise turn to 396. It might be advantageous to keep because it will ward off evil, apparently. So 396. You leap up onto your horse's back, then hoist Mima up in front of you. Soon you are galloping back along the road which brought you here. You turn off the road leading back to Calamere and race along a narrow track which winds up the hillside. You can see the lands far about, and off to your left a lazy plume of smoke drifts into the sky from Mima's village. Tick off a time box. So we are now on box 4. Not very far yet, so must be a lot left to go here. And turn to 95. 95, yep. Your attention is drawn to the far end of the valley, way off to your right. You shiver involuntarily, and the hairs on the nape of your neck rise. Your horse shies and whinnies in terror. A thick stench fills your lungs. The sparse slopes are being slowly enveloped by an advancing wave of black lava. Or so it seems. Your eyes adjust to the distance, and you see that the oozing black mass is not liquid, but a seething ocean of people. Even as you watch, it seeps closer, spreading like a dark stain. You have found the invading army, but will you survive to make use of your knowledge? There are many more people in the horde below than in Calamere's entire army. If you ride down into the valley to take a closer look, turn to 153. If you gallop off to your left, try to reach the village, turn to 358. Last time I went for the village. Shall I this time ride down to take a closer look? Why not? What's the worst that could happen? You dig your feet into the flanks of your unwilling mare, and she trots down the slope. The nearer you get to the mast below, the more you are struck by its sheer size. The rank smell hangs heavy, almost physically repelling you. If Mima is with you, turn to 283. If not, turn to 306. So again, just like for the other choice here, it matters whether you have Mima with you or not. So 306 or 283. Mima or not. I got Mima with me, so I got to 283. Mima grips your mare's mane firmly with both hands. She lets out a whimper of terror, then points into the black army. At first you cannot see what she is pointing at. Then you notice a pulsing black mist hanging in the air. If you have washed the green slime off Mima, turn to 16. If not, turn to 69. I knew there'd be something to do with the green slime coming up very shortly. So, 16 or 69. So that's slime or no slime. There's no slime like the present, as they say. 69. Mima shrieks as the black cloud rises and moves towards you, swimming through the air like a black velvet shroud. You are overcome by panic, and you wrench violently at your steed's reins. Mima is nearly swept off the horse's back as you whirl around and race off. You risk a glance behind you and see the black cloud swarming after you. A metallic buzzing fills your ears. As it approaches, you realize that it is a swarm of black hornets, each the size of a locust. As they swirl above your head, you brace yourself for the impact, but it never comes. You gallop on, hoping against hope that you will have time to get all the villagers clear before the hornets arrive. Turn to 35. And that is where we get back to the other choice of going for the village. So it doesn't seem like we lost anything by doing this, which is good. And again, it seems quite linear to me, this particular game, which also still makes it feel a little bit odd about the timekeeping, since the linearity of the narrative so far indicates it shouldn't really be needed. I'm not sure yet. It might be that this happens in other timekeeping games. Which one was it now? There was one of the science fiction ones that had timekeeping, and it felt a little bit contrived because it's like it only really mattered right at the end about which path you took through a maze, and then it doesn't really make it that exciting, and it feels a bit odd, the whole thing as well. Anyway, Mima clings on for dear life as you spur your horse towards the village. As you approach the palisade, the large gates swing open and you are beckoned in by a worried villager. Mima slips down from the horse and rushes into the arms of her parents. You waste no time in telling the people of the danger they are in. They grab what they can of their possessions and livestock before fleeing. Finally, you find yourself alone outside the deserted village. A huge black army is in sight now, steadily oozing down the valley towards you. It is time to make your own escape. Turn to 53. Okay. At least so far in this book, there's of course the thing about Mima there's a sort of you're not really given so much of a choice how to deal with her, because you are reminded that you're supposed to be a hero and do good things and be good. But I'm still a bit curious about that incident in the village when they thought you were the chosen one, and whether attacking them, I mean, attacking the people trying to stop you from leaving because they believe you're the chosen one, I mean, that's kind of an evil thing to do, isn't it? I'm always a bit curious about morality and interested in morality in game books, because the thing is that if the book wants your character to have a specific kind of morality, first of all, you have to make sure that the choices given to you are ones where you can be occasionally allowed to prove your morality. So you have a morally wrong choice and it leads to something bad, or you have a morally good choice and it leads to something good, or certainly something better. But never on any occasion should you have a choice that isn't a moral choice that leads to something morally bad. And of course, you who have seen all my videos know what I'm referring to, because it's an incident in Rebel Planet, and there's one incident in Masks of Mayhem where that actually is the case. You make a choice that is not a morally wrong choice, but the consequences of your choice are not, that don't follow logically from the choice, are one where you do something that is morally despicable. In other words, murder. So yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. And of course, when it happens, which doesn't happen very often, it's only really in those two books I've noticed it. It's really sticks out like a sore thumb. It's very glaring how wrong it feels to have those kinds of consequences from a choice that did not imply them. So yeah, just a little recap of that particular thing now, just as I was here. So yeah, so I'm still a bit curious what would happen if you actually stand up to the villagers and you attack them. Hopefully it will be possible to do so without actually endangering anyone's lives, because otherwise it's the morally wrong choice in a way. Right, I'm digressing. I went to 53. Yes, so now we have the Blackhawk is behind you. It is still many miles from Calamere, yet it is engulfing everything in its path. Although you know of no weakness in the enemy, surely Calamere should be forewarned. Evacuation may be the only means of survival. Take off a time box. I didn't take off a time box, did I? No, I don't think so. Okay, so. Right. Write to warn Calamere, try to find out more about the enemy, or search for Anthemesis the Enchanter, if you recognize the name. Now, last time I went to look for Anthemesis the Enchanter, I think that's what I'm supposed to do in this case, because it's the odd one out, isn't it? Riding toward Calamere, yeah, sure, that is my mission. But I think I've been giving a little clue now as to something that may aid me in my quest, or the quest to save Calamere. And that might be to find Anthemesis the Enchanter. Obviously, he has the means, the green slime, he has some kind of means to repel or protect from the evil. He knows something about that. So I am going to extend my mission the scope and the brief of my mission to include actually trying to find the means to repel this horde, this black creeping horde. So yeah, see how that works out. So you ride northward into the mountains, making your way carefully through wiry, bleached grass. There are no paths in these parts, and the grass conceals potholes and ruts. Without guide or marker, you have no way of knowing whether you are traveling in the right direction. Well, there is such a thing as sunlight, there are such a thing as stars. You wouldn't know how to navigate without seeing signs along the road. So you trust your instincts and keep the sun to your left all the time. There you go. Yes, we navigate by the sun, of course. Finally, top a peak and gaze down at a cheerless plateau. The grass thins out and your heart sinks at the sight of the barren plain which stretches almost to the horizon. Then you spot something, far out in the middle of the plain. Screwing up your eyes, you stare intently at a small dot, perhaps a hut or other dwelling. You spur your steed down the slope and after a few hours' ride are at the fringes of the plain. You realize with alarm that the wind is rising. Without vegetation, the soil on this plain is dry and sandy, and it whips up around you, obscuring your vision and stinging your face. Your horse rears, terrified, and you tumble from the saddle, your right foot tangling in its stirrup. Test your luck. If you're unlucky, turn to 54. If you are lucky, turn to 77. I'm going to be lucky. I just know I'm going to be lucky because I have a cup of tea. And if you have a cup of Earl Grey, you will have all the luck in the world. Right. Though you land painfully, you manage to grasp the stirrup in your hands and tug at it to calm your panicking mare. Grabbing her reins and bridle, you force her to the ground and hide behind her while the sandstorm rages around you. You wait for the wind to subside. Turn to 98. Next page. When the dust finally settles, you find yourself staring at an expanse of forest. Its presence is inexplicable. You saw no sign of it before the sandstorm. Intrigued, you approach and lead your horse along a faintly marked path between the trees into the silent forest. Soon the narrow path forks at a massive creeper-strewn tree with drooping foxgloves covering its roots. Looking around, you see the undergrowth is thick and impenetrable, and you resolve to tether your horse here before investigating further. If you take the left-hand path, write down the number 3 on the red. This is where I got a bit confused last time about the numbers. If you take the right-hand path, write down the number 2 and turn to 388. So, the clue was bush bearer's gloves. So I took that to indicate that I should aim for the foxgloves or something. Okay. What did I do last time? Last time I actually managed to find what I was looking for here, didn't I? So I went... left first. I seem to recall I got where I wanted to last time, so I'll just follow the same path as last time, really. So left 268. A little way down the path, you enter a small glade. In the center, you can see a slightly raised mound of loose earth with a neat circular opening just above ground level. From it protrudes a black human hand scrabbling in the loose soil as if trying to get a grip. As you approach, you realize that the hand's color is caused by a crawling layer of ants. If you rush to the man's aid and try to save him, turn to 300 if you would rather not take the risk. It's a trap, really. I'll go to 211. As you watch, the ant-covered hand grabs a stick which was lying nearby. It then withdraws back into the hole, and you hear scraping noises coming from within. You are not entirely sure what is going on within the mound, but you are glad that you didn't get involved. Yes, turn to 58. Two paths lead out of the glade, one to your left and one to your right. You are just deciding which way to go when you are startled by an anteater which waddles out of a clump of orchids and foxgloves to your left. So again, gloves to the left. Making straight for the mound in the middle of the glade. Wishing him a hearty meal, you continue on your way. If you have 3 numbers written on your adventure sheet, turn to the paragraph they indicate. Otherwise, if you go along the right-hand path, write the number 1. If you go along the left-hand path, write the number 2. So I wanted to go left again, so that's 388. You push your way carefully along the narrow path. After a short while you begin to hear sounds coming from ahead. Treading carefully you press on, expecting the worst. Suddenly you hear a loud crashing noise followed by a shrill, "By Ugbar's fingers!" This cursing is stifled by a loud "Shush!" But other voices cry out, "Shall I shoot him now?" "Not until I give the signal." "What's the signal again?" Suddenly a voice shouts, "Now!" There is a twanging sound from the trees nearby, and a small bow shoots from them, landing at your feet. At the same time, a short, stocky figure leaps onto the path ahead of you, pointing a crossbow at you. "Aha!" he yells, and lets fly a bolt. Turn to 189. The missile speeds straight at you, but too low, and passes harmlessly between your legs. There is a strangled yelp from behind you, and you turn to see a goblin with sword raised, staring in surprise at the bolt, which is protruding from his belly. "Nice shooting, Gok. Next time I use a crossbow," he croaks, and topples backwards. The goblin who fired the crossbow flings it guiltily aside and draws a small knife from his belt. He charges towards you with a curse, and you prepare for battle. But after 3 steps he is whipped off his feet and yanked violently upwards by a noose trap. "Got him," says a voice nearby, and yet another goblin comes into view, holding the other end of the rope. When he sees you, his jaw drops in a heap of fleeing. When his jaw drops and he lets go of the rope, dropping his accomplice in a heap and fleeing. Almost skipped the line there. You chuckle to yourself and advance up the path, marveling at the goblin's incompetence. A little further on you hear more goblin voices ahead. "Don't worry, Gobblb. I'll pulp him," says a squeaky voice. You saunter confidently round the bend in the path, only to find yourself facing an enormous ogre, his tiny goblin-sized head glaring furiously at you. Behind him cowers the goblin you encountered earlier. Fight them both. Fight them one at a time. The ogre first. If you defeat them both, I will turn to 166. You search the bodies of the ogre and the goblin, but they possess nothing but a few revolting morsels of meat. And this is where it was a little bit sort of ambiguous whether you were actually meant to be able to pick up the crossbow or not, because there is a point later when the crossbow is actually something that you are asked if you have. I'm going to presume still, until I found out something else, that it is possible to pick up the crossbow that was just dropped by one of the goblins here. After a while you come across the path. As you carry on down the path some distance, noticing the huge clumps of foxgloves which grows on your right. So again, right, foxglove. After a while you come across the path which turns off to the right. If you have 3 numbers written down on your adventure sheet, turn to the paragraph they indicate. Otherwise, if you go down the path to the right, write the number 3. So 1, 2, 3, I believe. Is that 1, 2, 3? No, 3, 2. No, hang on. The first path I took was left 3, left 2, and there's meant to be 3 different numbers, so 3, 2, 1. And of course the foxgloves are on the right, but then the path turns right, so that means straight ahead is where the foxgloves are. So I want to go straight and turn to 17. Yeah, it gets a bit confusing, this bit. The path begins to slope down and you hear the sound of running water from up ahead. Soon you reach the banks of a fast-flowing stream. After a while you hear a crashing sound from the far bank. A large and ugly troll is battering his way through the undergrowth which lines the riverbank, towing behind him a green leafy sapling. If you swim across the river to attack the troll, turn to 233. If you have a crossbow in which to try to shoot the troll, turn to 147. If you remain quietly where you are, turn to 180. I believe I have a crossbow at this point, so I'm going to see what happens if you do that. You wind back the crossbow string and fit a bolt. Taking careful aim, you shoot. You are rewarded by a howl of pain from the troll and he glares at you from across the river. Before you have an opportunity to shoot again, though, he has crashed off into the undergrowth, turn to 381. So that doesn't really help. Staying quiet, was that useful? The troll soon disappears off into the underground, blah, blah, blah. 381. So it doesn't make a difference, it seems. You all end up at 381 anyway. So 381 it is. There is a faint path which follows the riverbank and you make your way along it. After a short while it plunges back into the forest. If you have 3 numbers written on your adventure sheet, 32321 I believe, turn to the paragraph whose number is given by the 3 digits. Okay. So this is where I go to 321. As you press on, you notice clusters of purple fungus growing on either side of the path. You have to pick your way carefully along the path to avoid disturbing them in case they carry poisonous spores. You begin to remember tales told of southern forests in which a hapless adventurer can lose himself in a maze of shifting trackways, wandering in circles until death from hunger and exhaustion catches up with him. Ahead of you, the trail divides into 2. You may take the trail which slopes downwards slightly and to the left, or try the other which leads off to the right. Last time I went left, lost stamina. Let's try the one on the right. Might lead to the same place actually. Passing straight on, you find the undergrowth creeping onto the path ahead of you. Soon it becomes difficult to push your way through it. You laboriously hack your way through, lose 1 point of stamina. Okay, so same difference really. Finally reaching a clearing from which 2 other paths lead. If you take the path on the left, turn to 366. Take the path on the right, turn to 221. So the maze is still not over. Now last time 366 looks like a good place to be because I gained the luck point there, so I'm going to go there. You're beginning to lose all hope of ever finding your way out of the shifting maze of pathways, so I just got into it for the first time. When the trees ahead thin out and the trail leads into a large clearing, add 1 luck point and take off a time box. 1 more time box. Before you is one of the strangest dwelling places you have seen, a crude mud hut sitting proudly on 4 spindly legs, 20 feet off the ground. There are windows in its walls, but they are too high up for you to see inside. There is no sign of a door, even though you walk all the way round the hut. If you walk under the hut, turn to 254. Try to climb its legs, turn to 202. If you wait to see what happens, turn to 145. I've made a note of what waiting is the wrong thing. I've not tried climbing. Under seems to be the right thing, because that's where the hatch is. So I'm going to go underneath it, and there we are. As you step between the narrow legs, you notice an opening in the floor of the hut above you. You are just wondering how on earth you are going to make it up there when the hut begins to lower, the spindly legs bending. You position yourself directly under the opening as the hut descends towards you. Turn to 372. Inside the hut, there is none of the clutter you have come to expect from the dwelling places of magical folk. There is no furniture of any kind, no books or scrolls, not even a single vial of potion. Through the windows, set in the smooth walls, you can look out into the forest. Squatting in the middle of the floor is an old woman dressed in a rough shift. Her hands are raised above her head, and between them you see a shimmering vision floating in the air. In a swirling void hangs a wall of cells full of dishevelled prisoners. So that's this thing here on the cover. And again here. She looks at you in the eyes and speaks. A vision from your future, perhaps. Look closely. Look hard at the slaves of the abyss. Their souls are in thrall to its master, and you must rescue them before it is too late. This much I will tell you. If you wish for more, you must pay for it. Can you speak my name? So this was Alethea, presumably. So I'll turn to 80. The vision disappears. The woman claps her hands and smiles. You are bright for all your ragged looks. It seems destiny has guided you this far, so I must play my part in its design. Many trials lie before you, and your enemy is not easily vanquished. But Bithos has fears, and you may be his nemesis. Bithos, that's my arch-villain, presumably. And Thymesis has gone on ahead of you, and his aid will be invaluable. If you have Sige's Pomander, turn to 295. I still do. Let's see, where are we now? Okay. Let's see, the options are a little bit different from last time. 295. Pom, question mark. 114, new. Okay. And there we are. That heady mash of herbs you carry does more than you may think, says the woman. You will know of its sleep-stealing properties, I warrant, but its powers on this plane are as nothing compared to those it holds in the abyss. Eaten in that mystic region, it will protect you from the master's crystal breath. Eaten here, it will turn your stomach. That is all. It will turn your stomach. So it will actually, so I'm supposed to eat it when I get to the abyss. So that's a clue. So let's see. So clue or hint. I should say hint. Eat. Pomander. Abyss. Okay. That is all. You are very lucky to have such a gift. The Pa, Mait, and Teth herbs are extremely rare. As she speaks, you feel a soft weight upon your shoulders. You turn your head to find yourself staring into the eyes of a serpent. You shudder and automatically grab for it, but it is too fast for you. In an instant, its thick coils are wrapped around your neck. Meet Caduceus, says the woman. Make a note of the names of the herbs in order on your adventure sheet and turn to 307. Okay, so that's also so it's Pa, and Mait, Teth. So presumably there's something that needs to be picked or collected or added to make a potion in the right order. And this is part of the solution of the game. You have to make some kind of potion, presumably, or pomander or something to protect your fellow people from the creeping horde. We'll see. Or to save these people in the abyss, possibly. We'll see. 307. So that means that it's only if you say the correct name here that you get the information from that paragraph. That is the names of the herbs. That's interesting. Okay. 307. The best companion of all is he. Loyal yet independent, she says. You smile uncomfortably. Praying that Caduceus will soon find something else to wrap himself around. Alethea continues. The plague which is upon this land is spread not by rats. She raises her arms above her head once more and conjures another vision. It is a swirling cloud of huge black hornets. Well, I already knew that. The vision disappears and she speaks again. These parasites can steal a man's spirit with their stings, banishing it to the abyss and leaving his body a slave to evil. So I have to save the spirits that have been taken to the abyss, presumably. And what warrior can fight off foes so tight? So I suppose you are saving the world again, aren't you? Because after they take the province, they will take the rest of the world, won't they? She pauses as if deep in thought, then begins to create another vision. There is one way they can be defeated. The untainted leaf of the Jira tree may be burnt to produce a fragrant smoke that is fatal to these soul stealers. A young Jira grows in the forest, but as the vision forms, her face drops and she lets out a gasp of surprise. A pile of loose soil marks the spot where a tree has been uprooted. Turn to 282. Yeah, 282 on my map already. 282. Alethea is despondent, but you remember the troll you saw carrying a sapling by the banks of the river. Quickly you describe the tree to her, and she confirms that it is indeed the Jira. You must go at once and rescue the leaves, she says. I control the paths of the shifting forest. Follow the trail and you will reach the river. When you have the leaves, the path will lead you safely back to the glade where you left your horse. Be sure you never return to this place. I will not be so welcoming a second time. You hurry from the hut and along the only path leading out of the clearing. Minutes later you reach the river at the spot where you saw the troll. You find his clumsy footprints in the soft mud and follow them into the forest. Did I kill him? Or did he just get annoyed and go away? I can't remember now. Anyway. A little way and you come upon him crouching by a large hole in the ground, vainly trying to poke the sapling into it. If you shot a crossbow bolt at the troll when you saw him earlier, there we are. Go to 269. If not, turn to 122. So last time I shot him, so 269. The troll glances round as you approach and you see him look down at the crossbow bolt protruding from his shoulder, then stare at the crossbow you have slung from your belt. Trolls may be stupid, but they never forget someone who has hurt them. He leaps to his feet and charges at you, brandishing the sapling like a club. And of course you win. Go to 207. You wrest the sapling from the troll's dead fingers and start tearing off the leaves and stuffing them in your backpack. Once you have stripped the tree, you head back to the river, finding yourself on a trail which runs along the bank. Turn to 133. So that is so 207 and then to 133, which is on the next page again. Last page, actually, so I'm getting close to where I ended last time. Let's see if something is different this time. At the end, there was a question about the Reaver's bottle. So if I get to exactly the same point, maybe something will be different that will make a difference. Okay, so 133. The path follows the river downstream for some way before turning into the trees. Very soon you are back at the glade with the mighty oak, and pleased to see your horse still safely tethered, munching contentedly at the grass. You mount up and spur her along the path and out of the forest, glad to be away from the trees and their treacherous pathways. After several minutes you look back and are astonished to see a sparkling blue lake where the forest should be. Far off in its midst, a tiny hut rises above the waters, supported by its familiar spindly legs. Alethea has many ways of discouraging unwelcome visitors to her realm, it seems. Now you have a weapon. It is time to confront the vast horde. Alone. Turn to 325. So at the moment it sounds like this is very linear still to me. But I don't know what happens next. Maybe this is just the beginning and then there's something completely different happens in the second half, because first you have to stop the horde and then you have to, but you won't stop them completely, and then you still have to save the people in the abyss. Maybe you have to gather those herbs to create some kind of, so there's still, it might just be sort of the halfway point you get to here. You turn your horse back towards the huge black army. Take off a time box. Yep, that is on the map. A brief ride brings you within sight of it, and you watch helplessly as it engulfs a small town in the valley below. Amid the multitude, a palanquin is borne aloft by willing hands, and above it hangs a pulsing black cloud. If you follow the army at a distance, turn to 70. If you ride down to the palanquin, turn to 368. If you have Jira leaves and wish to prepare them now, turn to 11. So last time I have the Jira leaves. So I suppose I should prepare them. So I'll go to 11. Well, something about the timing of the preparation, was I? You tear a strip of cloth. Yes, the lighting of the torch. Okay, I remember there was something about that. You tear a strip of cloth from your breeches and tip the leaves onto it. Chopping a small branch from a nearby tree, you wrap the leaf-filled cloth round one end and bind it tight. If you then decide to light the Jira torch, turn to 34. If you ride down to meet the army with it unlit, turn to 368. So, it sounded like lighting it now was the advantageous thing to do, so I'm going to try that. You strike a spark from your tinderbox onto the torch so that the cloth begins to smoulder. Soon the acrid fumes of the Jira are wafting from it. With your weapon prepared, you ride forth. Turn to 368. So 368, 368, there we are. You spur your horse down towards the horde, trying to quell your rising fears. It is vast, and a foul stench wafts from it. As you near the bottom of the slope, you pass a dark cave entrance. Then you approach the horde. You take no notice of you, but the dark cloud above the palanquin begins to move in your direction, picking up speed. What's the significance of the cave again? Yeah, that comes up later. If you have a Jira torch prepared, turn to 138. Otherwise, turn to 113. So I do have it prepared. 138. Have you lit your Jira torch yet? If so, turn to 199. If not, turn to 171. I have lit it, yeah. Okay, 199. The cloud of black hornets swirls around you, and you curse as the breeze picks up, dissipating the Jira smoke. The hornets are closing in on you. If you flee back up the hillside, turn to 386. If you make for the river which runs along the valley to your right, turn to 42. If you make for the cave entrance you passed, turn to 106. Now the cave sounded like a good idea last time, I think. Luckily the cave mouth is large enough to take both you and your horse, but a rude shock awaits you within. A pathetic caveman, clutching a large bone, leaps up to strike you as you enter, knocking the Jira torch from your hand. You draw your sword and attack. If you defeat him within 5 attack rounds, turn to 144. I'll definitely do that. You snatch up the extinguished Jira torch and set about relighting it. It is smouldering once more as the first hornets gather in the entrance to the cave. You rush to the back of the cave and watch as the cloud swarms towards you. For a moment you fear that the smoke is not harming the hornets. Then they begin to fall. Soon the cave floor is littered with dead and dying bodies. When you are certain that it is safe once more, you ride out and down towards the horde. So that seems like the very correct thing to do, actually. To lure them into the cave so that the effect of the smoke is actually not dissipated. This might be the only correct thing to do, possibly. It certainly sounds like it to me. You dismount and face the multitude of blank-eyed peasants as bravely as you can. Several of them set down the palanquin they bear, and from it steps a richly dressed man, his face deeply scored, his eyes burning with malevolence. His silent horde makes no move towards you, but the man gestures them to advance, his movements calm and deliberate. He speaks. "You'll pay for the slaughter of my winged servants. You'll pay with your life." Before you stands the unsmiling general of this warped army. Calamer's fate lies in your hands. If you have the Reaver's bottle and wish to show it, so this is where something will be different from last time, turn to 55. Otherwise, if you know the spitting fly and wish to use it, something I haven't encountered, turn to 260, or you may attack him, which doesn't work. So I've got the Reaver's bottle now. Let's see what happens. As you take the fish-shaped bottle out of your pack, your opponent shrinks back. He stretches his hand out towards you and moans, "No, no, not that!" You ignore his pleas and uncork the bottle. There is a sound like a faint chuckle from within, and the once proud commander of the army dissolves into helpless, crazed laughter. If you know the spitting fly and wish to use it, turn to 255. Maybe you need both. 255. If you wish to draw your sword and attack him, turn to 324. So in this case, 324. It's different from the other one, the other paragraph you get to start with, which is a failure. So let's see if this is enough to actually, if now at least he is assailable. Even though he is almost disabled by the laughing fit which grips him, your opponent manages to draw his sword and put up a spirited defense. Skill 10, stamina 15. So he is strong, but he is not undefeatable. So I have no idea what the spitting fly is, but one day, maybe. The slave master crashes to the ground, his body shattering as if made of china. From the shards emerges a wisp of black smoke, which grows and twists into the shape of the man you just slew. He smiles confidently and drifts towards you. His arms encircle you and lift you off the ground. His blurred, smoky features are close to your face, and only his eyes retain their sharpness. "I am Bithos, master of the abyss," he says defiantly. "Though you have destroyed my earthly shell, yet I live on. Calamer is still mine, taken from within. You will not rob me of victory. I have the spirits of these people in thrall. They will remain trapped in the abyss for eternity." His smoky foam dissipates and you fall to the ground. Around you stand the people of Calamer, empty and unmoving. You can do nothing for them. Turn to 238. 238. Still have to save them from the abyss, so let's see what is next. After I take a phone call, so excuse me for a moment. Right back. Right, I am back in the room, as it were, after my phone call. Sorry about that. So where was I? I was going to 238. You turn dejectedly back to your horse, but stagger as you feel something coiling round your leg. It is a large snake. Angrily you raise your sword to cut it down. Before you can strike, however, the snake speaks softly. "Don't you recognize me? I am Caduceus. Bithos has fled to the abyss. You must follow him there if you wish to save these people, for Antimesis has failed. The river in this valley flows underground and passes through a cavern in which there is a gateway to that region. Go now, lose no time." You slithers away and you hurry over to the river. Using a rotting log as a makeshift raft, you are soon racing with the current. Turn to 89. Right, so that's the next part of my quest. So that means, interestingly, of course, that if I, or when I play this next, I can start from this point probably rather than from the beginning. So after the point that this must be a choke point of some sort where you defeat the slave master and you make this creeping horde actually make them immobile for a time being. So this is, so I'll just put here my new, so starting point. Right. So success, I guess, in a way. Something new accomplished. The river leads into a tunnel in the side of a mountain, and you are swept into darkness. After a short while, the river sweeps round a bend, and you are washed up on a rocky shelf, which is worn smooth by the pounding water. As you lie there, sodden and panting, you take a look at your surroundings. A guttering torch has been driven into a crevice nearby, and by its light you see that once round the bend the river runs beneath an arch. So somebody has gone to all the trouble of putting a torch right there by the ledge and lighting it every few hours round the clock so that you can find it. Torches, a bit dodgy in most fantasy settings. Anyway, iron bars are set into the arch, blocking entry. Behind you, leading from the rocky shelf, is a dark tunnel with light flickering along its walls. If you re-enter the water and examine the bars, turn to 277. If you investigate the tunnel, turn to 362. Right. Right. You know what? I did say I'm going to start here next time, and I think that actually I've been recording for 2 hours now. Of course, there's minus some of the phone call. I think actually this is a good point to take a little break. Now, in the past, as you know, I usually did one playing session was me playing from I started until I met a sticky end of some sort. But there's been a few occasions where my playing sessions have been rather long, and of course I do have other things I need to do with my day. So I think I'll actually stop here and continue from here next time, because this is a new section of the game. Seems to be some kind of dungeon crawl and is being initiated here. And judging from the linearity and the actual quite low number of paragraphs I've been through, relatively speaking, to this point in my game, there must be quite a bit left still as well. So it might be a short episode next time, but I think I shall make it a next episode rather than continuing this one. So I'm going to take a little break from this game now. I think it's the best place for it, it seems like, and then continue from this spot next time. And hopefully it won't be so long until next time, so I still remember exactly what's been going on here. Hopefully it'll be an interesting journey, the rest of it as well. So thank you very much for watching, if you watched all the way through. And of course, as you might still be aware or not aware, my channel is not monetized. It's not sponsored by anyone. So if you do want to support me, my creativity, what I do, if you appreciate the time and effort and energy that's gone into creating all this content, especially the Fighting Fantasy series, which I don't know how many hours of episodes I have now, feel free to help me out a little bit. Just a tiny donation on Buy Me a Coffee or coffee.com is appreciated. Of course, if you want to do it a bit in a more appreciative way, at least I find it more appreciative, is to buy a piece of music or artwork on Bandcamp or on pixels.com respectively, and of course now also buying my poetry collections available on Amazon. Even if it's not something that is something that you normally would be reading, maybe you'll find something you like in here. And if maybe you know someone else who likes poetry or might appreciate a little bit of a different thing, so yeah, highly recommend it. If you want to know more about the kind of poems that are in here, there will be more and more videos on that as well on my channel. There are some already, and there will be more. So thank you very much for watching again, and I will see you in the next one, whatever that will be. And I will have to do something music as well soon, because it's been a long time since my last music playing session. It's been almost 5 months now since the last time I fired up my synth. So yeah, different things I want to be doing on this channel, and not enough time for everything, unfortunately, but there you go. So thanks for watching again, and for the third time, sorry, and goodbye for now. Bye bye.